Hello, hello, hello. How y'all doing? Waiting for some company for this discussion. I have a vegan book dropping. Okay, February 23rd. Brother Vegan is debuting on Lantern Publishing and Media. Peace. How y'all doing? I want to talk about some concepts that we will be discussing in Brother Vegan. I'm also going to be on VegFest UK. Be on VegFest UK January 31st, that's Sunday, and I look forward to it. So some quick updates on that, and then I want to get into some Black VegFest news. For folks, do understand very key things. I want y'all to stay on so y'all know exactly what Black VegFest is doing, especially if you're following us for festivals, for any resources in terms of veganism, activism. So, real quick on Brother Vegan, I got some excellent folks. If y'all familiar with Dead Prez, some of y'all came into veganism with Dead Prez. M1 is answering some questions. Stick is answering some questions. Dr. Milton Mills, Brother Vegan. We got my brother Kevin Jenkins, who looks like he's in his 30s, but he's in his 60s, and looking great and still able to do what he's doing, 100 push-ups or something like that a day. Ridiculous. Oh my goodness. So and just on that, when I heard about so many elders that are able to stay strong and stay fit and look great, I really stopped thinking about, age or when I get older. I mean, veganism making it look good, and you finding out they're all vegan. So it's the theory and it's the practice that's happening right now. If y'all messing with that Atkins diet with the no carbs, he died of a heart attack, heart disease. So, and that's the major killer. So when we're speaking right to these issues, don't think it's just one particular issue. Okay. So also in the book, we're talking about family. We're talking about how do black men behave in a household, right? How do we work with our children? Okay. We also talk about what made us come to this realization that we should be vegan. We should stop eating meat altogether, consume no animal products. So black men discuss that. We have this conversation. So we have this, and it's a complex and it's an interesting conversation with Brother Vegan because one, me being just take for instance, me being an editor, and I'm an activist, I'm an organizer, right? I'm a fighter, right? So when you look at me being a fighter, and you might think that fighters gonna focus on protein. No, we're gonna focus on skill set. We're gonna focus on nutrition. And anytime you focus on nutrition, any athlete I've ever spoken to, right? And I've been an athlete for decades, for over 30 years. I've always been an athlete, and anytime talking to athletes, those at the most the highest levels are going to tell you that they consume less animal flesh, and once they hear about how dairy is complicating their system, they automatically understand, oh, that's why I've been feeling heavy. That's why it's been tough for me to breathe. You're talking about having a lot of mucus I had a lot of mucus, chronic bronchitis, growing up, and didn't really know where that was coming from, right? Or you got breakouts, talk to your children, about having, certain breakouts. Decrease the dairy. So try it, right? That's the great thing. Try it, but really make a concerted, effort to eliminate the meat that you've been eating on a consistent basis. So, you start to decrease and you try it. So just like any particular diet, any lifestyle, you're trying it, right? So we're saying, you give ethics a try. So there's many different reasons and ways and so many different concepts that we're going to be discussing on here. I'm talking about being unapologetically Black and what that actually means. And I love that practice and having that conversation with talking to men, because people think that you can't be firm and compassionate at the same time. So, last year, or rather the year before, for 2019. So our last Black Veg Fest, event was 2019. Obviously, last year we had the Black Veg Fest rally in place, right? But we couldn't have the massive amount of people that we had. So we had 6,000 people come in 2019. And we already had so many, tickets that were taken for free, right? For people to appear 2020. Obviously, we couldn't have it, and we couldn't do the Bronx. But let me tell you, when we shut down, when we closed, we said we wasn't going to accept Coca-Cola dollars, for 2019. That's an example of being firm, and then also being compassionate and having integrity, but being compassionate to the principles, and to the people. Meaning, we care about the people. We're not just going to take the money and leave the people high and dry. So because we're talking about the people, because if they see Coca-Cola and they see that Black Veg Fest is behind it, and so many people are looking for education, they're looking for leadership and food justice, and they see that example, then they'll feel like, well, it shouldn't be a problem to just, consume some Coca-Cola, even though it's responsible for diabetes and deaths in our community. So of course we wouldn't want to have Coca-Cola. So that's one example of being compassionate and being firm, right? And I talk, about being unapologetically Black and being firm and clear on that, right? Because I feel like I want to give you information. I want to give you understanding, and I want the white community who is very much engaged in the vegan community, right? So and first, the Black community has always been engaged in the vegan community. I know in Brooklyn, but when we talk about the activism shows so much. The activism for animals shows so much of white faces, but there are Black folks who do a lot of that work. Definitely check out Stuart Mitchell, Vigilante Vegan, and there's so many excellent folks. And I wish we'd had him, Jabari Brisport, for the book, but he's going to be our state senator. He's our state senator now in Brooklyn. So much love and support, to that brother. But he's also an advocate, for animals. I'm an advocate, for animals, and it gives you an idea, gives you understanding that you relook and examine with this conversation that we're having in our community. And so it's open to everyone to understand and learn what it means when Black men become vegan. But one, we're thinking about our health, of course. Many of us are ethical vegans. We're thinking about climate change as well. We're trying to cut down on the CO2 emissions, and that begins. It should begin at least with ending factory farming. We should also be, we talk about ending dairy for a number of reasons. Ending dairy because it's racist. We're lactose intolerant. But also look at what we're doing to the planet. Look what we're doing to the cows, especially when we don't need them. We have so many varieties of plant milks, that's out there. So there's so much information That's in Brother Vegan. Excellent compassion. Um, show of compassion between a lot of the brothers. So it could be a great time in organizing, right? So I hope you out, pick up the book. The book is going to be, out there, and you could definitely get it off my website, omawale.org, Brother Vegan. So, and it's everywhere else. But if you want to support me directly, you don't have to go to Barnes and Nobles or Amazon, for the book, where you can also pre-order it. You can pre-order it with me, and I would appreciate that. So I'm gonna go right into Black Veg Fest. Um, what are we doing right now? So we had an incredible 2020, and I commend all my comrades as organizers and Black Veg Fest. So, in this understanding the model of Black Veg Fest, and we're all organizers, right? So there's not one person that runs Black Veg Fest. So I initiate the concept, but folks, there's always initiators, and in any type of organization, any type of group, right? You always have people who initiate, but we on the same footing. It's a horizontal matter, front or group collective, as you will, and understanding how we come to solutions is through consensus. Building, organizing, and getting to our solutions, right? And so, what are some of the things that we've done? We can go backwards. In November we did the People's Harvest. That was our note taking or thanks taking, where it used to be called, but it's our People's Harvest, where we came in, we gave our food. We reject, this idea, this notion that Thanksgiving was something that was beautiful and unharmful to Native Americans. Of course, it undermined their, in terms of system, their civilization, their family, right? So, how you doing, peace? So, understand that there's so many different, concepts that we need to introduce, and so Black Veg Fest is looking to be in leadership in with those concepts without having a single person that is the leader of our group. So we were able to give out Dr. Bronis for support. Much love to Dr. Bronis. Also, who else? We get resources. Follow your heart. Real supportive. And so that was just a beautiful day, for us to give out resources. We gave out sandwiches, hand sanitizers, and Castile soap to people, and we also gave out masks. So this is the kind of work that we're doing. We Black Veg Fest, so a rally in August. In between there too, we're also doing protests in terms of supporting them, supporting political prisoners, former political prisoners, anything that we can do. And what we're doing is offering PPE, personal protective equipment, masks, goggles. So a number of items that we do have, the hand sanitizers, the Castile soap, so we want to offer that, the food that we get from other vegan brands, and because you can't have the protests happen and they not be supported, right? So, and that's who saved the day. At the end of the day, that's who saved us. In terms of bringing and raising up that consciousness. You have to raise that consciousness. And what is that? That political consciousness that something is wrong. What can we do? You have to point to what the problem is. If you don't know what the problem is, then you have to come back and really get into this idea and this understanding of theory and practice. We also was able to go on Juneteenth, head to Tulsa, Oklahoma, and also provide them with food, provide them with water, any resources that we had we felt that they needed. Right. Every single time we do this, we provide information. So why we're doing it. We believe we work in a way that is it focuses and centers vegan intersectionality and being unapologetically Black. And so, in order to do that, we want to support our folks who are on the front line, who are out there, and then those folks who really can't get to the front line because they're prevented from one way or another. Maybe they're disabled, or or they feel like they don't want to come out and to COVID. So we try to make people feel safe and making sure we have our masks, all our gear, and especially if we're interacting directly with people, we want to have our face masks, face shields, rather. So y'all know the face shields is like cover the whole face, and then the face mask is just right here for the nose and the mouth. And so we'll pass those out. We have those items. And so this is what we're going to be doing for this year coming. So we're still in this stage where we're supporting organizations, right? We're supporting folks. And this is how folks understand how vegan intersectionality works, right? So this is how we really try. This will be a larger conversation because I've never, if you go through my head, I don't like to just be working and just running my wheels. If they're not tied to long-term solutions, then what exactly am I doing? I don't do it for service, just servicing, because you feed somebody today, yeah, they'll be hungry the next day. You definitely want to feed that appetite, but you also want to get people to understanding why you're doing it. So we provide them with vegan information, and so long term, so it'll be more informational. It's more. So I've not eaten meat since 1993, right? So understand this. If I'd had the information, I would have went vegan a lot sooner than the 2013, right? 2013, before, during that time, I stopped with the dairy. I didn't even mess with eggs anymore. I just wanted to make sure that I was totally vegan. Soon after that, and made sure that even my belt, even my belts, and my sneakers, they weren't leather or they weren't from animals. And really investigating information. Had somebody had a conversation with me, I'd have been benefited to so much more. So it's not just you person just giving me an alternative or just one recipe or feeding me a particular meal that's vegan. If they give me the information early, I'm gonna do way better than that. By this time, I can make anything that you're making. You understand? So that's why the information is so key and so important, and is great to give it to young people because they'll soak it up like a sponge. So that's super key. And this is some of the work that Black VegFest is doing. So we're supporting folks. If you feel like you want to support what we're doing, and I want to be clear on what we're doing. So we receive items from Dr. Bronner's. We might receive items from Tofurkey, Follow Your Heart, Beyond Meat, whatever. We want to get that to the folks who are most in need. We want to get that to folks who are on the front lines in particular, folks who are actually addressing issues. There's still people who are raising their voice. Just because, listen, the folks that we have in office, let's be honest, we got the enemy out, right? We got our worst enemy out. We didn't get the best hero in there. I'm gonna say that again. We got the enemy out. We did not get our hero in there. We didn't get our best hero. Our best representation is not in office. We can understand this. We can have this conversation. It's called being an adult. We can understand the differences. Here we know what people were saying. We know the history of Biden. We understand the history of Kamala Harris. We also understand the significance of a Black woman, or a woman finally being a vice president. We understand the significance, and and we absorb that. I personally, absorb that, and I think that is, That's phenomenal. That's excellent. However, if you're willing to just stay there and just be like, hey, now Kamala Harris does not have to try. You understand? Now Biden does not have to try. They won't try unless you push them and urge them. They will do what Democrats and anyone in office has always done. You have to get on the front line. And I appreciate the folks who are on the front line, and I will always say that. Salute to you, Chef Will. Uh, it is very key that we understand what we're up against and what we have, at our disposal, what resources that are available. So, what resource are you going to play? What are some of the things that we're looking for? Well, I think this is the day and the age when we allow organizers to kind of be a little bit more flexible and rest. And I really want to say rest really confidently, because organizers, we don't really rest. We don't really rest. However, if other folks are stepping up, then we can acknowledge there are other people who are doing this work. And I want to know if there are other folks, who are actually, doing this work, as well. Having this conversation, about, all animals, including, non-human animals and humans, right? We need to have this conversation of, oppression and how it works. If you want to try to build a particular system that is going to be just, then you need to start talking to the leaders, not just congratulating them. So we're going to get out of this stage of just congratulating them. What are some of the policies, some of the legislation that we can actually affect? Let's go right to it. First off, let's make sure our food is labeled. Let's go back to label. Let's revisit what Obama did not want to do. And let's ask them, hey, are y'all ready now to label food? Label food as GMOs, right? Or organic. Also, um, let's also think about bringing down those rates, those prices, because we know that some of the folks, I know some local folks who have great food, non-GMO, it's organic. However, they don't want to pay those fees, so people can't be properly informed and make an informed decision, on that. I choose local all the time. I choose local. Why do I choose local? Not because I'm living in Sullivan County and specifically Jeffersonville, which pretty much is it's all farmers. It's pretty much it promotes farmers in this particular area here, right? And folks didn't know I moved from from Brooklyn to up here, right, to do a lot of this organizing work and this activism, right, with this particular space, knee deep in the snow, but the snow is going to dissipate. So understand that if we have this particular system, set up where we can organize, 'cause I'm gonna get right to it. If we have a system we can organize where we know who can we rely on for masks, who can we rely on for vegan food, vegan information, these resources we can set up right. So there is a this is for white folks, especially on white vegans, because white vegans you can understand it a lot better, right? You understand the concept of compassion. You understand. You already working on. You already understand the concept of ethics. You already understand that, right? So check the 7 points of allyship. That's at blackvegfest.org, right? So go to blackvegfest.org, all right, and you're gonna find a form and then fill out on the form. There's also our GoFundMe and support our GoFundMe, 7 points of allyship. Now, for Black folks, we have to learn to be unapologetically Black. If you're not able to try to be unapologetically Black right now, while they have a Black woman who finally became vice president, you really just trying to talk. And I can't talk to death. I can't talk. I can't talk this. I can't talk to death. I don't know how many of y'all been doing this work for 20 years or more. I know some comrades who've been doing that for 40, a lot more. But let me tell you something. Folks cannot do it all alone. we gotta start raising our voice, right? How many times you been at this particular job? You ever been at a job and you know we need a raise, but you're not asking for a raise because you don't know what the other folks gonna say, so you don't want to be left out when they offer them something and you get nothing, right? You have that situation. Okay, so first off, that's a reality in every single situation. It's why black folks have to code switch so often, because they're uncomfortable. Black folks are uncomfortable having this conversation, with white folks and the reality is, if we're gonna talk about making any kind of change, something beyond just because right now, same as Barack Obama or Kamala Harris, same as both of those folks. It's just for eyes. It's just for us to see. We don't know the work yet. We don't even know. We don't know the work. We just know what this person's skin look like. Let's be real. We just know what their skin look like. We just know that Kamala Harris, Vice President Kamala Harris, is identifies as a woman, right? As a black woman. Okay, that's all we know. We only understand her identity. I'm willing to get past the identity and talk about what's the solutions. What kind of solutions? What are the solutions that are happening right now? Now, top of the list for black folks is reparations. We talking reparations, and so that's an unapologetically black conversation. It's unapologetically black conversation. Meaning, if you let me help white folks out. Now, if you having a conversation with some black folks and they say they ain't for reparations, how would they represent us? They're not taking a hard line against with the status quo. If they're not taking a strong and interest line, because if somebody listen, we only in this situation. People be like, don't talk about slavery. We only in this situation because of slavery. You know what I'm saying? We don't recognize that our history has been interrupted. Our history was interrupted once we got to Jamestown. Okay, all right. 1919, 1619. Okay, our history was interrupted. We came here. All right. That wasn't like, oh, good, we over here now, and so we had to make something happen. We had to make ourselves, happy. Anything that we created in this, we created this because we had to. Understand that. We have never had an opportunity to kind of relax and rest and decompress and kind of just talk amongst ourselves. No, every single time, even right now, during a pandemic, right? We have to fight hard to keep our jobs still. We black folks, I'm talking about, we still have to fight hard to keep our jobs. And then you got some folks who don't, who not cisgendered like myself, got to fight even harder, right? Within our own community to kind of make sense of it. All right. And so, and that's why we take a firm stance on supporting black trans. We take a firm stance on supporting black queer folk. We take a firm stance on supporting black women. We take a firm stance. We don't hear what nobody's saying. We don't want to hear nobody talking about, oh, we got to build family because such. Take care of the babies that's in foster care right now, or be quiet. We don't want to have that conversation, at any time. So that's what it means in terms of organizing, in terms of unity. That's unity. Understanding and identifying what our situation is. If folks are ethical, right? So I put this on white folks. If y'all are ethical, right? Because I know a lot of the folks who come here or who are white, they are vegan, right? So that's a good step. That's an excellent step, right? So if you that ethical, surely you understand when animals unite. You understand it when cats unite, right? You understand it when a deer kicks a hunter's ass. That deer is doing it for all the deer. You understand that. You understand it. You understand this concept. I just come here to remind folks, of this concept that's already in your mind. But what prevents you from really kind of, absorbing this concept and being a part, it's your privilege. You'll be less privileged. You'll be less privileged. And I don't give a shit how much money you do not have. You'll be less privileged. And you recognize this. And you recognize this. Okay? And that needs to be pointed out. Right? So acknowledge what your privilege is. So I acknowledge my privilege. Why I gotta acknowledge my privilege when I'm talking to white folks every single day? I acknowledge my privilege as a black man, as a man. I understand that. I understand that privilege. I understand that I can go through the park. It could be dark, and there's less chances. Not that I won't be attacked at all, but there's less chance that I'll be attacked than another woman. I understand this reality. White folks can never tell me that you don't understand that if we even get into a conversation or argument in front of cops, that you won't feel more, you feel more comfortable that the cops are there, that they're going to take your side. You know this. You know if we going out on the job, and we similar, you like, okay, I could beat them out. Why? Because the fucking company is white. Why wouldn't you feel more comfortable? The company is white. It's a good chance that they might hire you. And guess what? It's a good chance that if they say, oh, you know what, I'm going to go with this black person just because, I got to keep the numbers up with them, you'll be able to go somewhere else and get that. We don't have those conversations, but I'm always for those conversations. Tough conversations. If you don't have tough conversations, if you don't have, if you can't talk about criticism, if you can't talk about introspection, right? If you can't understand compassion or sympathy, you can't empathize. How you gonna do this work of veganism? How you gonna be an ethical vegan? How you saying you an ethical vegan? It don't even make sense. You're not looking at yourself and your position and how you relate to the world. So we're gonna constantly keep having that conversation because every single time, like somebody, I posted on my page that I'm training black boys. Why wouldn't I train black boys? Black boys are less likely, less likely to be hired compared to other races and other groups. Even when we talk about other genders in New York City, that's in New York City. Why wouldn't I talk about black boys? They have. I've been a black boy before. I'm a black man. Why wouldn't I have this conversation? Why wouldn't I want to educate them where you understand the identity? So that's why I'm telling white folks to, you go organize white folks. If you say you organizing, white boys and you training white boys and you training them to recognize their privilege and you're training them to not only recognize their privilege, but to be on the side of folks of color for liberation. Have a training for white boys. I'm training them to make sure when they grow up that they get fit, they able to defend themselves, but they also defend folks who are queer, folks who are not necessarily looking like them. For them to defend women, for them to defend and allow their space for black for trans folks. Why wouldn't I do this? Somebody said it was racist. It was racist. How do I have power, over them? You don't know what I'm educating them, about. But you can. All you have to do is look at my site. I'm training in fitness. What am I talking about? To ethics of veganism. Who are black boys most likely to listen to? another black man, right? So, and that's clear. And this to be clear, and I mean, it's not even for them to agree. I'm gonna do it anyway. It's not for folks to necessarily agree because I'm already gonna do it. If I'm educating and teaching, black boys, then they become stronger. Why do I want to malign them and keep them in a system where they only recognize boys and girls? And I had to really grapple with that. Well, how do I make sense? And you know why it made sense? Because I went to foster care training. And when I went to this foster care training, it was 15 years ago, 15 more, years ago. I learned that the foster kid numbers go up. They don't go down. So people are not getting those kids. So I never want to hear a conversation about you don't agree with queer or trans. Like you some foster care parent. And even if you are, you ain't got all the kids, you know? So it's a weird idea to think that we're all gonna think alike and be alike, right? So you open this space up, you open this conversation, and you see, and then when you open the conversation up, you're going to see that there's always some folk. I remember seeing Sean Bell was killed in 2003, right? And then when they were about to announce the non-indictment of the police officers, the 4 police officers that were involved, of killing Sean Bell and wounding his friends, Obama had came out with and this is when I just totally was done with Obama, right? Because he came out and he attacked folks because he thought we were going to trash the place, right? We were outside the court. I was there. It was in Queens. Sean Bell was murdered in Queens. So I went to Queens, and we were waiting for them to be indicted. And so he had said that, and then we know what I saw there, and I saw folks. I saw trans folks. I saw trans folks for Sean Bell, who was going to be married to a black woman. He was murdered when he was about to be married the next day. I think he officially got married, but he was going to have the entire the wedding and everything, and he was killed before, right? And so I saw trans folks there, and it totally warped my mind in 2003, and it had me thinking, and it really had me thinking that level of compassion that folks have, can transcend. It can transcend, the genders. But I still tell folks to keep banging, in terms of communicating, to trans folks. You got to keep pushing out, your objective. You can't slow down. I see black women are getting some shine right now. I wouldn't say slow down. I see black folks, getting a little bit. I wouldn't say slow down. I see, veganism is doubling and tripling, in the last 10 years. I wouldn't slow down. I'm not going to slow down. We organizing. So the step we have right now, we building this space, a training space, up here. There's about 20 acres, here to farm, to grow food, to create connections to our people, and to do this work. And I feel grateful for being in that particular space, because I've been in space where people have resources, then they don't share them. I've been in places and been in spaces, and I said, listen, let me get into spaces, you got to share resources. And I try to tell people it's a science. You share resources. People get to see you share resources. You get to extend those resources, because you can't sit on all of them. You can't use all the resources at one time. You understand? You can't use them all at one time. So you share them, and you build and you grow. You gain more partners. You gain more partners. You need more people to be a part of that mission and part of that. Let me also read some of these comments. Very true, and so right. They might. I know you were speaking to. Thank you, Earthchild. 2006. Thank you so much, Emso. Thank you. It's 2006. It wasn't 2003. When Sean Bell was murdered. Thank you, Emso. I appreciate that. So that's so key. Um, that we stay on it's so key if we understand vegan intersectionality that oppression is overlapping. It overlaps. There's more things than whatever we're dealing with. I'm dealing with things as a black man. You know, there are other folks who are black, who are also working class, but who are also trans, and so we can connect. On being black and understanding that oppression, and I need to also acknowledge the other level of oppression, as well. I think a lot of times we don't want to acknowledge that, and so we center just ourselves, and we got to be careful of that. And so with identity politics and just centering ourselves, I believe folks have to speak up. Don't just center yourself, just based off that this identity, just off of your, specific identity, right? I don't, I want to try to raise up as many folks that I feel are, left behind, or left back. And I also wanted to center on, black men and black boys, because I have a black son, right? So I have a black son, and we talk about, uh, understanding and having them, preparing them for relationships with women, right? Prepare your son with relationships with women. I'm not just talking about intimacy. I'm not just talking about intimate, relationships. You know, prepare them for that, for that. And I heard women say, before, oh, they didn't recognize, women, until they had girls. I mean, that is probably the best way for you to really understand that. Like, don't lose gems because you don't like how that happened. There's other ways in how we can educate and learn. I learned how to treat women from women. You know what I'm saying? It's very key. I learned that, from women, right? I can learn that from men, but I get it direct information, is so key. And I want to be clear on that, because I know a lot of folks are going to be like, well, I'm tired of, teaching and so on and so forth. Let me say this. I'm never going to get tired of teaching white folks. You know what I mean? Because as soon as I stop, what's going to happen? I never get tired of, I never get tired of teaching. I can teach you hard lessons. I can teach you, what I'm saying? You can, you can be taught a hard lesson, you know what I mean? But I don't get tired of, teaching. And I think a lot of folks are going to get tired. And you okay with being tired. It's okay to be like you were tired. Just recognize that other people, we ain't tired. You know what I'm saying? Them folks, Stacey Abrams, she ain't tired. I'm doing Stacey Abrams. She ain't tired. You know what I'm saying? I'm not tired. I'm not tired. I don't want folks, and I had this idea that you want folks to go read a book, white folks to read a book. I don't know what book y'all reading. Y'all might come here with with some book, and I totally don't understand like how you came to this conclusion. And you might read a book that don't even talk about reparations. I'll give you the list of books. Read the debt trap. Read the debt trap. Read the debt. Read the debt by Randall Robinson. Read the debt trap by Cheryl Payer. Read Overturning the Culture of Violence by Penny Hess. That's a white woman. I'd be helpful and palatable. It goes right into it. I mean, that's a great book to to read. She's part of the Uhuru movement. Um, and I think it's clear. It's a nice thick book. But all the books that I've brought up, they have a way of talking about food justice in such a way, even if they just kind of just go past it a little bit, just to highlight the oppression within food justice. And that's a key element. And I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna close in a bit. Um, is that the work that we do is multifaceted. I think a lot of time, very often, people are always asking, like, especially organizations or foundations, they want to know, what kind of work do you do? What we do a lot of this. I mean, we do this work because, like, people would not live. This is struggle and survival work. Some of y'all not doing struggle and survival work because you feel like you ain't got to really, like, you look at, unless you're looking at struggle inside of a collective vision, like, you just based on your mood. It's based on your mood, how you actually feeling. Like, personally, like, you might have a fucked up day. You know what I'm saying? But there's nothing out there that's going to stop you from that. You know what I mean? So, you know, and I want to give that understanding, to folks. It's very different when you in a life and you moving in a life to make sure that we grow our freedoms. Black folks trying to grow their freedoms right now. You know, we trying to grow our freedom. There's other folks that call it, to grow our freedom. But sometimes, like this year, and I'm very happy, very pleased with, the younger generation and understanding this and opening their voice and just magnifying their voice, so much. We're trying to grow our freedom. We trying to get to this situation where we're not just in survival mode all the time. We're not just in survival mode. Like, you got to be like, white folks be like, look, there's a millionaire. We got to be a millionaire so we don't have to, so we can fly away from y'all. You know what I'm saying? So we can go somewhere and, like, chill and kind of relax, and be like, oh my God, that was so crazy. Oh my goodness, we had a weird year. And that's what we have to do. So I see this kind of moving up. Like, we're gonna feel sorry. I would never feel sorry for, Trump. Better put his ass in prison. If his ass ain't in prison, listen, that'd be an egregious mistake, right? As much as does happen to us, it doesn't show that white folks face consequences, especially white men. They don't face consequences. I don't give a fuck about their companies. I don't give a shit about their companies. They're losing money, and this lie that if they lose money in the company, then they can't hire people. That always happens. Just like they're too big to fail. So only if they're white. Only if they're white. Only if they're white. If they'd have been a business that was mainly spearheaded by folks of color, women, man, they're not too big to fail. Let them fail. You would have let them fail. So go get that guy. Show what happens, and make sure you show white supremacists, the consequences of attacking the Constitution and the lawmakers, right? That needs to happen. So I'm not gonna do any backflips and start, clapping and so on. I acknowledge it as, oh, that's a good thing. Okay, there's some good things, but I'm not like, people are trying to just go back to normal so quickly and so easily. Y'all are trying to go back to normal. People are still dying from COVID. but people were suffering regardless of COVID. We're already suffering, so many ailments. We still don't have. We need universal health care. That should have been immediate. Biden jump on that immediate. Why is the conversation not talking universal health care? Why are we not talking about ending factory farming? Why are we not talking about making sure that it's no longer mandatory that we have milk in school? That's all I'm saying. At least don't make it mandatory. At least don't make it mandatory. That's it. I mean, it would be great to just get dairy out of the schools altogether, because here in New York City, folks of color are the majority, but they have milk, in there, which folks of color, the majority of us are lactose intolerant. So we can't eat dairy. We can't eat meat either. I don't think we can't eat meat, either. We can't eat meat. If heart disease is number one, we're not supposed to be eating meat. I think I'm gonna end off. I'll end on that. If heart disease is still number one after 90 plus years, we're not supposed to be eating meat. All right, and